All right, so in this episode, talking about my favorite, I've just found out about energy systems, and I haven't just found out about them. I've been in this endurance game for 25 years, 10 seriously, and really like doing my research. And energy systems are quite interesting because it's the training that affects the energy system and then what event. So it's like this puzzle, and it's almost like a choose your own adventure, and how things are so different for every individual person and how it can change depending on humidity and what you ate and all these different things. I have a interesting analogy. How do I convey in a really simple way all the different workouts and what they do? So I came up with what I call, I don't have a great name, but it's the gluten-free sandwich analogy of threshold. The reason why it's gluten-free is because if I call it a regular sandwich, I might offend the gluten-free people, and I was going to call it a hamburger, but I might offend the vegan people. It's just a sandwich with whatever protein you want. You can put mushrooms in there, you can put eggplant, you can put whatever fake meat you want. So you start off with the protein patty, that is the threshold. So that's burger. That's the thing, the literal meat in it, how your threshold works. And I'm totally open for you to shoot this down after I'm done, Mike, because you are a coach, you're an exercise scientist, you understand this way better than I do. For the listeners, it's really, really confusing. We got threshold as the patty, because that's the goal. You want to race. Everyone's goal, or most people's goal, is to race as fast as they possibly can. And you're usually racing around your threshold for most events. And you're not reaching a threshold in ultras. And yes, there's a 5K or 1 mile race, and you're way above threshold. And let's say the easy run is the base, right? And then we say the aerobic building, or steady, or IMAT, that is the sauce on top of that bottom slice. The aerobic base, then you put on aerobic building, and then you got some sub-threshold work. And this is quite new to me. The sub-threshold it's right when you start to get into zone 3, but you're not really tapping into that lactate system, and that's the piece of cheese. And then you got your threshold. And then you've got on top of that threshold, you have the piece of cheese that goes on top of that, and then your faster tempo work, which is more 10K stuff. And then you got the sauce on top of that cheese, which I would say is your anaerobic sessions. To end it all, the top piece of bread is your all-out sprints, 10 to 20 second, just totally depleting the ATP system, which is what we'll talk about. To sum all that up, and actually there's one big point I wanted to put on that. The goal of threshold, from what I understand, is all the aerobic stuff pushes it up. So you can push your threshold and you can pull it up, depending on your training. Pushing's obviously easier from physics, and you end up actually longer. Like you said, 16 weeks, you can hold your fitness. I think you can even go a few weeks without doing anything, and you'll hold most of your base fitness. Obviously, you'll lose a bit. But when you start pulling, that's when you get gains much faster. I didn't even talk about the VO2 max sessions. I could have thrown those in there. Those are somewhere around the top piece of cheese and probably the bun. You pull up your threshold, you do it fast, and it also has higher risk. And the danger is injury, illness, sickness, burnout. So you want to do a combination. This is where the 80-20 principle comes in. So you can almost say your sandwich is 80% bottom bun and 20%. There's a lot of ways of looking at it. And the goal of today's podcast is to talk about how those energy systems the training affects those energy systems. That's my whole analogy. I got it out of my system. Feel free to shoot it down, Mike, and tell me why it is ridiculous or great. I'm open to all of it.
As you know, I was a teacher. The point of teaching is keeping things simple. I think what we've done is we've lost everyone. You've introduced all the terms and not really explained any one of them. To get everyone back, they're all interested in eating this burger, and I'm quite sure it's going to be the tastiest burger they've ever had. We have to break it down to some basics and say, what are the basic ingredients of the burger? So when we make the perfect burger that you've got to get the ingredients. And as you know, if any recipe that you have, if you put the ingredients in the right order and the right quantities and follow the recipe, you get at the end, a good cake, a good pie, or whatever you're making. If you get the ingredients in the wrong order and the wrong amount, it can be a disaster. So we have to look at the ingredients that go into the burger that you just described, and what are the really important ingredients.